So welcome, Paul Manwaring. It's great to have you come onto this feed to stream out there to all the people who will get excited about the content we share together now in this little interview. Of course, we're here to advertise the Gifted Week, which begins Monday, the 25th of May, streaming live at 7 p.m. onto the Family Church UK YouTube channel and the Arrow Ministries UK Facebook page. And Paul has kindly given up some of his time to answer some questions, as well as promote Gifted. He wants to bless you with his response to my questions. I know that many of you who see this video love and respect this man of God, and he has such a father's heart and so much to share with us and teach us. Younger leaders like myself can learn a lot from people like Paul Manwaring. So before we begin to go deeper, who is Paul Manwaring? And I'd love to know more about you myself. We've only recently connected, but who is Paul Manwaring, the man, father, grandfather, other things that you want to tell us about your passions, hobbies? How do you blow off steam? Tell us something about yourself that the people will not know.
Well, the quick career history of Paul Manwaring is I've been a nurse, I've been a prison officer, a prison governor, and a member of the senior team at Bethel Church. And so that's my career path, and I could talk about that a lot. But I mean, who am I? I'm first and foremost, I'm a son of God. I'm Sue Manwaring's husband. I'm a father of two great boys, James and Luke, and grandfather of two incredible grandsons who are Aidan James and Fletcher Luke, which is very fun. I love a lot of things. One of the challenges for years of my life was diversity. People kept trying to brand me, and then one day I realized that my brand is diversity, and I lived that out. I've never had a day of my life and not owned a single lens reflex camera. I love photography. I've been cooking since I was about 8 years of age.
Wow.
I think if I had my life over again, I'd be going for the Michelin star. I think it might be a bit late to start that now. I love to cook. I love to serve great food, great coffee. Really, Sue and I, we love people. We love being with people. We've had the privilege of traveling and going to a lot of places. I've played some sport over the years. I've just recently discovered there is a squash court near me, so I'm going to pick that up after this virus is done and get back on a squash court. I cycle a bit. I walk a bit. Sue and I walk. I've always loved walking together. So really, that's us. This lockdown, I bought myself a pretty decent bit of cooking equipment for my back garden, and
Nice.
the first time in my life I've ever had a routine. For 7 Saturday nights in a row, I've cooked great pizza. And the justification is I'm giving the neighbor one every Saturday night. He has a pizza from me, and so I love that kind of stuff. But I love life. I love people. I love my boys. I love music. I got my vinyls back out recently and bought myself a deck, and my son and I chatting about that. So yeah.
Fantastic. There's been a resurgence of vinyl, hasn't there? My nephew's really enjoying his decks and buying retro records.
Yeah, it's
spinning the decks. So to move on now, let's just have a think and a discussion about your move to the UK. What really excited me when we had our first phone conversation is your passion and heart for revival. Of course, Bethel has a revival culture, but also your massive heart for not just leaders and helping and supporting them and propagating revival, but the fact that you have Europe in your heart and Europe in your sights, maybe even beyond that, for revival and for impact. Can you tell us a bit about your move and the call of God over your life?
It's a funny thing, really, but honestly, what happened was, we went to Bethel. We actually went for Sue. We didn't go for me. I wasn't trying to get a job in ministry, and I found myself on the senior team. And until probably 2012-ish, we were there for life. We were good. We had a great life, great house and home and everything. And then February the 2nd, 2012, on a Sunday night, Mario Murillo gave me a prophetic word that I would preach in stadiums. I found myself at Reinhard Bonnke's school, cut a long story short, and I fell in love with the gospel. And I got introduced to a group of people that they were the kind of people that honestly, I never saw myself amongst them. but they're the crazy evangelists. And I found myself amongst them, and they've become some of my closest friends. I found myself at Awakening Europe 2015 with Ben Fitzgerald, preached in Nuremberg to 26,000 people. Oh, and everything changed. It was the game changer. And it then seemed as though everywhere we went, somebody was telling us, you're going home, you're going back to Europe. People who didn't know anything about our story, probably didn't even know I was a European, thought I was an American or something. And so it bubbled up. And I preached at every Awakening Europe. There isn't one this year now, sadly, but I've preached at every one of them. These guys are my friends, Jean-Luc Traxel, Matthias van der Steen, Ben Fitzgerald, and a number of others just became my friends. And the word the Lord gave me was to father young evangelists. And I know that I'm not the evangelist. I know that I'm not the same as them. I can do it, but I'm not the same as them. I know the call is to father them. And some other curious things. Sue's grandfather was the Reverend Stuart Harris, and he was the president of the European Christian Mission. And it's almost as if we got woken up to our family DNA in that mixture of coming home. And this is the great unreached continent, but this is the continent that gave the world revival, reformation, and renaissance. Wow. And we have the foundation. And it's time, I believe, for us to build on our foundation. Nowhere else in the world had the gospel. We exported the preachers, the missionaries, the songwriters, the movements. We exported it from this great continent, and it's our time. So that's a lot of where my passion is for our continent. And of course, I've been saying I'm a British European. That's not politics. That's my heart for revival.
Oh, wonderful. That father's influence on young evangelists and the revival DNA, missional DNA in your wife's line, it all comes into a laser-like focus in the passion you have for fathering individuals, fathering organizations, because the Bible says there are not many fathers. Paul the Apostle is clear on that. And this is true, actually. There's many good fathers in a family setting, but in the church, to find a good father who has done the distance, been there before, or has influence to shape young people who might have the anointing, the gifts, but maybe not the character or the experience. Can you tell us a bit about your fathering? I'm excited about a new book you've got out called Things Fathers Do. That's very fresh. Can you tell us about that and the projects and focus you have with the lens of fathering at the moment?
Well, I just don't think that you can separate the subject of sonship and father heart, and of course daughtership and mother heart. It's all wrapped up. To me, it's gender neutral. You cannot separate it from the kingdom assignment. The Father sent his Son. There is the absolute essence, the core DNA of creation and of everything. And of course, Isaiah 9, 6 and 7, two of my favorite verses. It says the government is on the shoulders of a son. And you can't separate. For me, an apostolic move of God, which I'll probably touch on a little bit, and I'm talking about a little bit at the conference. An apostolic move of God cannot be separated from an inner healing, sonship, father heart move of God. If it is, it will revert to an old school, top down, elder brother controlling organizational model. And it was for freedom that Christ has set us free. And so you just can't separate these two. And I do believe that God has led us on this 50-year journey of sonship and the father heart. And he's led us on this journey for such a time as this. So for me, they're both personal. I've been on my own personal journey. I believe that every one of us has to become a son or a daughter. We have to receive the spirit of adoption. And then we have to become fathers and mothers who raise up sons and daughters who become fathers and mothers. And one of my passions is that we grow up. Ephesians 4, the whole passage is really about us growing up. It's so fascinating to me. The purpose of the fivefold gifts is that we all attain to the stature, to the maturity, that we grow up. And so that's really where it all comes from. I love the teaching. I love sozo and inner healing, and I love the pictures of people running and jumping in daddy's lap. But quite frankly, that's not what I need. I need shoulder to shoulder, man to man, adult to adult relationship with Jesus Christ. And I need that with you. I need it with my brothers. And so for me, it's a journey of us growing up. And I've included some of that. My book, Things Fathers Do, is kind of practical, supernatural, really. And a lot of it is just to say, have a look at what you're doing. You're revealing the Father more than you realize. You just need to go, oh, yeah, I do. I create safety and culture and protection, and give my kids permission. And all of those things reveal the Father. So you can't separate it. And you probably almost can't shut me up from talking about it either, but that's probably okay.
Great. I'm loving it. Fabulous. I mean, I remember walking out onto the church car park out here, and I heard what I believed to be the Lord when he said to me, my end game is not the church. And I'm rifling through scriptures in my mind thinking, well, Jesus gave himself for the church. He loved her and gave himself for her. And wondering the source of this was the Lord said, my end game is family.
Yeah.
And at the end of it all, when egos, logos, labels fall away, the family of God will be forever with the Lord. But I love that illustration that you brought out there of the idea of not just needing the childlike imagery of jumping onto the Father's knee, but also having that man-to-man, which I know there's a lot of guys out there listening to this who relate to that. The church is often not manly enough. That flower arranging classes in each corner, and it's just refreshing to hear that take on fathering. That fathering can be robust and nurture boys to become men. I also love the imagery that you said about Jesus being a sent one. As the Father sent me in John's Gospel, he says, so I send you.
Right.
And again, that's the image of the church, isn't it? Ecclesia is the sent ones, or the people sent out, called out. A nation or a people called out to be sent out. And that too excites me. So speaking of the called out, sent out ones, let's just move into very briefly something that excited me in a conversation I had with you previously, where you mentioned about your passion for the church to go beyond its walls, which of course media is doing that to us in lockdown, but more than that, to infiltrate all of society with kingdom fragrance and values and culture. Can you talk to me about your heart for the value of people in all sectors of society in the apostolic, in the sending of God's family?
I'd be glad to. Dangerous subject, but the shift that has to happen is that the church shifts from gathering people to sending people. It's not that we don't still gather, it's not our purpose. Our purpose is to gather, to heal up, to do relationship, to encounter God, so that we're ready to be sent out. And so we need to be sent out. If our goal is the church, then we will make it that unless you've got a paid job in the church, you're not successful in the kingdom.
Fantastic.
And you've already quoted John 17:18, as the Father sent me, so I send you. We are the sent ones. And my passion is that the doctor, the teacher, the graphic designer, everybody, the nurse, the person working on a computer, standing behind a reception desk in a hotel, cleaning tables in a restaurant, cooking food. The list is endless.
Brilliant.
Every one of those needs to know that they are sent to expand the influence of the King to every sphere and every corner of this planet. And it's not that I don't love the church. It's not that I don't love the positions that people have in the church. But our job as Christian leaders is to equip the saints so that they know that they are the sent ones. And really the apostolic is the key of that. And the key question is, are you apostolic? And most people hear that and hear the wrong question. They think I asked, are you an apostle? They wouldn't think that if I said, are you prophetic? They wouldn't hear, are you a prophet? So why have we confused it with the apostolic?
That's
the
fantastic.
key is we are all, if we've all come under the influence of the chief apostle, his name is Jesus, then we are apostolic. And it's time for an entire family army of apostolic sent ones to know that, whoever's watching this now, when you sit at your desk on Friday, drive your truck, pick up your phone, I want you to know in the core of your being, not because I laid hands on you, not because Steve laid hands on you, but because Jesus said, you are sent. It should be inside us that we know we've been sent, we're on assignment. And too many people, in my experience, are waiting for a call to church leadership or waiting for somebody to lay hands on them. Jesus has already sent you. If you're waiting for mere man to send you, stop it and realize that Jesus sent you.
That's fantastic. And again, it goes back to that orphan-heartedness and the identity issues, sonship. It's all this wonderful link, as you said, between the apostolic and between sonship or a healed up heart. I love it in Ephesians 4, which you mentioned, where the Apostle Paul eyeballs the Ephesians, and he says in verse 7 of chapter 4, God has given to each one of us, he includes himself and the Ephesians, God has given to each one of us a measure of Christ's giftedness. And this is what you're saying, that the victory of Calvary and the ascended Christ took captivity captive and poured out his gifts on the church. But the church has often compartmentalized giftedness to vocational ministry and has totally missed the blueprint of heaven for that which is mature, the full measure of the stature of Christ. And equipping church has often been, how can we raise up the best pastors, evangelists, and so on within the church, instead of realizing that the church is there to empower people to live as Christ in this world. But the game plan of God has predestined us to be conformed to the likeness of God's Son, all of us, in character and power across the spectrum of our spheres of influence. It's really exciting what God is doing. I think God's reorientated the church on the apostolic, and I'm really glad that voices like yourself, who have profile and a reach, help the church see beyond its own walls, because quite often the arrowhead of the apostolic prophetic has been subordinated to the pastor-teacher model, and because of that, the church is stagnated with those who are rightfully caring for the church but not able to advance into society in the way that the apostolic prophetic mantle does. Just a few more ideas, because we've spoken about apostolic. People who are seeing this are still sat in their homes and their offices sometimes, wherever they are in the day, and they're just still a little bit anxious, broken over the lockdown situation, confused, disorientated, worn out. I've had so many pastoral calls from people who are struggling emotionally, and some people can't see beyond. It's understandable that, because we really don't know the future. And even with the easing of lockdown, there's a sort of sense of uncertainty about what the timescales will be, what the church will look like on the other side, what society will look like on the other side. In your thoughts and your reflections on this, what do you think the Lord is up to? What sunlight can you shine prophetically perhaps onto the church and its future after lockdown, or even as we journey out of lockdown into what God has for the church in the next few years?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would say is it's okay to feel a sense of grief about our current season. It's okay. Now I know some people have obviously paid the ultimate sacrifice and price in grief. And so it can make it difficult for us to grieve over the fact that I couldn't hug my grandson on his birthday. But it's legal to do that. It's okay. And I've actually used the model of Psalm 126, along with actually Zechariah chapter 4 has really meant a lot to me in this season. But Psalm 126 was where I began, which is a psalm that says we were like those who dreamed. And there are 4 things in that psalm which I think are clues to how to live in this season so that we're ready to come out of this season. And you can't understand the Christian faith without understanding exile, without understanding wandering, without understanding captivity, without understanding imprisonment, without understanding wilderness and long journeys. It is the nature of the Bible and our faith. They're all in them. So in a way, we're privileged to join the ranks of those that journeyed, that waited. Psalm 126, there's 4 things. One, there are tears.
Yeah.
Tears is the evidence of grief.
Yeah.
And it's important that we allow ourselves the grief that actually draws us closer to faith. Not grief that drives us away, but the tears, because in our grief, we can see that Jesus was a man acquainted with grief. So there are tears in Psalm 126. There is also joy. Those that sows with tears will reap with joy. And joy is the evidence of hope. And we must keep hope alive. But you don't get hope when you won the lottery. You get hope in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And that's important. There is also then sowing. And sowing is the evidence of life and an expectation of more life. And it's important that we work out what we're sowing into in this season, in our lives, in our families. I'm watching my son, his family's become a mini band. It's wonderful. He's sowing into them. But then there's this other, Psalm 126 has always been in the mix for me, but it got promoted in this season. And it says, we were like those who dreamed. That means that if you have that experience when you come out of captivity, that means you must have dreamed in captivity.
Great.
And you can't be like those who dreamed if you didn't risk dreaming. I think you dream small dreams. I'd encourage every one of you, dream small dreams. Have some of those dreams. My wife wants afternoon tea in Windsor Castle.
Fantastic.
Because they're opening the cafe. The first time Windsor's had a cafe in the castle. She said, I want you to take me for tea. It's a deal. The small, simple, achievable things, and then get the big dream. What's your big dream? Risk the dream. So I've seen Psalm 126 as a key, and the other place, and I could talk, I won't, but I'll just hit the one highlight. The last verse of Zechariah chapter 4 says this: the two anointed ones are standing by the Lord of the whole earth. That struck me as something. It's the whole earth. We are in the middle of something that's affected the whole earth. And the two anointed ones actually means this, you probably know because you're a theologian guy. It means the sons of fresh oil. I believe what's happening is we're going to come out of this with fresh oil. We're going to come out of this with a renewed fresh oil. And you can read the whole passage of Zechariah if you like. It talks of plumb lines, foundations, small beginnings, not by might, not by power, but by my spirit. But there is this beautiful picture that the sons of fresh oil are about to be released to the whole earth. And I believe that's what's happening. So I'd encourage everyone, allow yourself to grieve, keep hope alive, sow into the future, learn new skills, develop new ideas, but most of all, dream. Because I'm looking forward, Sue and I have talked about it, there's one big dream we have, and we've said to each other, we can see ourselves walking into that and looking each other in the eye and saying, we were like those that dreamed. And so actually early on, what the Lord told me was study what the prophet spoke into captivity and what the psalmist sung on the way out. And that took me to, we were like those who dreamed. And so, yeah, I'm with you. It's scary. It's a bit painful. It's uncertain, but it's actually quite exciting. And I believe we're on the verge, on the edge of something that we've prayed for. We just didn't know we'd have to walk through this fire on the way.
Yeah. I remember before lockdown happened, I kept hearing this repeating phrase in my spirit, which I believe might have been the Lord, where it was this phrase said, gold is found in the fire. Gold, and just kept resonating around me. And I entered lockdown. I think you're right. God is creating something very special in the church, giving it muscle where it didn't have it. And so I'm filled with excitement about the future. Paul, that was just great just to chat with you. And I know we're going to really benefit from your anointed messages in Gifted Week. I've seen them, really high density images, really lovely. You can tell you like your SLR, great camera that you've filmed on. And so tune into the Gifted Week next week at 7 p.m. every night. Paul will do the final one on the Saturday and one earlier in the week. We're just scheduling at the moment. Apostolic and Sonship are his topics. And we are so privileged to have him at the Gifted Conference online this year. So God bless you and keep you. And thank you, Paul. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And I'll speak to you soon.